All right. Yay, YouTube family and YouTube people and YouTube and possibly not YouTube, depending on what I talk about. Family, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all that you do. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. All right, first of all, I'm outside in nature, so I'm going to take a pause, turn the camera around, take a nice deep breath. And just remember that everything is a vibration, okay? Including myself and however I start things and end things with everything, right? Okay, here we are in the midst again, and there must be something about the new moon because we just had, I think the moon just entered into either its 18th, equaling 9 lunar cycle. And I want to mention that January, February, March, I haven't checked February. Do I have the book out here? I do not. All started on a new moon, which I haven't really seen happen in since I've been studying the new moon and the moon cycles, which has only been a couple of years. So I found that interesting because we're also in a 222 year, which equals 6, which is 9 upside down. And that, what I've noticed for the past, since I've lived here, since I've lived where I live right now, which is about 7 years, that around this time of year, there's this upshoot of emotional pull. It's like we just came out of Christmas and the holidays, and I will say that in certain sects with a C of religion, from what I studied, in Catholicism, they will continue the Christmas, rituals and celebration, I guess you could say, practices, all the way through to February 14th. And it all relates to goddesses from all the research that I've done. It all goes back to goddesses. Everything goes back to goddesses. Every word we speak goes back to goddesses or goddess or the feminine. I just want to re-mention some word assimilations like siblings. We talk about sibyls, siblings, and I'm guessing the original word was applied to those that were of certain religions that understood or the practices of the goddess. And you became like brother, sister, and siblings. And so we carried that into English, okay? Because you don't see that everywhere. I know in Spanish it's brother and sister. I don't think they have a word for siblings. I'll have to check into that. Okay. So there must be some energy about this time of the year, quote unquote, because a couple years back, before the whole COVID thing, this was around the time there was some racial polarization happening. Then you go back a couple years before that, and a couple years before that, and it's happening again. It's happening with what's going on with us. I'm not gonna. I don't care right now. I'm gonna say it. What's going on with Whoopi Goldberg? Okay, two things. What's going on with the truckers in Canada and what's going on with Whoopi Goldberg. So we'll start with the truckers in Canada. So what I've seen, and I don't completely disagree with this, but knowing the Indigenous history of Canada, and it's not history because it's still happening, and they do not, from what I've seen, Canada does not really honor their Indigenous people really The United States doesn't really either, as far as I'm concerned. I know that they've done some things, but when it comes to like honoring treaties and really recognizing how the indigenous people are treated and their real history, it's still being ignored in the United States. It's still being ignored in Canada. And so there are some people of the land, indigenous, who are kind of sarcastic about what's happening with the truckers. To me, it's like this. It's obvious that we can come together. It's obvious that we can be a force. People in general, when it comes to something you believe in, and there's a force. See, to me, the mandates affect everybody because it affects their jobs, right? When it comes to specific rights of peoples, specific rights of genders, just civil rights in general, we don't always see this kind of protest, I guess is the best way to say it. And I like the protest. I think it's pretty awesome. I know that there's going to be a food shortage because the truckers provide, and there already has been because there's been a backup with shipping overseas, even domestic shipping, and just product in general because of the whole COVID thing, right? So we're already seeing the economic and other effects of this, what I consider a plan. It is, I don't think it's real. There's tons of information out there that supports my theories, and I'm just going to say that part. But as far as what's been happening with the media. So to me, this kind of shows like you're either seeing a great support for those truckers or you're seeing a great disappointment in those truckers. And I do see the irony of like a bunch of people coming together for something they can all agree on, but people aren't coming together to say protect indigenous women or people of color or go down to the borders. And you know what I'm saying? Like we're not willing to surround our I'm not saying we're not willing, but this is after, besides 9/11, what happened after 9/11, this is the first time I've seen this many people come together for one particular reason. So I like that idea, but also can we do that for other things as well? Just a side note. And for instance, the indigenous people, specifically the women that keep disappearing, and for the indigenous peoples in general, because all of the land that those truckers are driving on is indigenous land. And the peoples that had it before and were living there before are still not recognized and aren't being treated with the political, basically, recognition that they deserve, I think. And that's the story. So I get it, okay? As far as people who are not Canadian and are not Indigenous and that are basically standing for the idea of not having tyranny and not being forced to do things, okay? And that also information should really be given. And so there's that, and there's a lot of emotional effect this is happening for people because it's I think intentionally doing is driving people to pick a side. Okay, so that automatically interferes with your emotions. It's basically whatever's happening outside of us, the media keeps pushing on us, has to do something with our internal emotions and triggers and things we have not actually worked through personally, not just as a country, because from what I've learned about slavery in this country, it's been exacerbated, and also what has happened in the Americas. I'm talking about this country, the Americas. There has not been any real true reconciliation given to the peoples of America, or if there are people from other countries that have been brought here that the story is true about, even that hasn't been reconciled. Not reconciled, but yeah, reconciled. Okay. And so it will create emotions, right? Straight up. And then, of course, you're going to have emotions when it comes to livelihood, food, access to roadways. All right, with that one. Then we're going to move on to the Whoopi Goldberg thing. Okay. What the heck is happening when this is what I think is happening. I think there's two possibilities. I think it's possible that the 5G technology is starting to be used. And as I've talked about, I believe that the Great Mother is a dark matter. Just like matter, like something matters, or mother, or mature, all relate back to matter, which is also considered a feminine energy. Okay? So we have a dark woman who speaks a certain perspective about something that was horrible. Okay. The name in itself, Holocaust, holy cost, a holy cost of people. So, if we use the word specifically, I believe this is a holy cost of people. I think any outright basically elimination of people or misinformation to people on a mass scale that causes harm is a form of a holocaust, a taking of the cost of the value of humanity, realistically, right? And so in our country, race is a big thing. In other countries, race can come down to religion and the language that you speak. Even the name of your tribe, like what's happened in, I want to say Somalia. No, Sudan. I think it's Sudan with the Tutsis and the Hutus, okay? And so humanity, I agree with her, is capable of doing some horrible things upon humanity. And I believe outside of that conversation that that's what's happening right now. Horrible things are happening to humanity. Horrible things have been happening to humanity. And humanity in itself, if you look up the word and what it means, it does not mean what we're seeing in the world. It actually means like a beautiful, kind creation of basically spirit. Okay, that's what humanity is supposed to mean, or humankind. That there's a reason for those words. So what I see happening is another polarization. We're going to have racism come back in, and it's a direct attack on a dark brown woman, the feminine aspect. And if you go back into our American culture, you can see that certain people, once they reach a certain age of color, certain people of color, once they reach a certain age, something comes out about them, something happens, something something to basically discredit them. And from the context of the conversation, I personally don't think it warranted suspension, which I'm guessing will lead to watching the public's reaction, and then a decision will be made as to whether she can keep her job. But also, from what I understand, Whoopi Goldberg is a Jewish name. She, I think the word is basically became Jewish, right? Had to go through some of the things to be able to be Jewish to get married to her first husband, I think. You can double check that. But from my research, because I looked it up a long time ago, because I saw her in something several years back where she was wearing a yarmulke, one of the little hats that also Muslims wear, and you also see it in Christianity. Okay, like, oh my goodness, it's just frustrating because sure, there is a difference between religion and race. However, I didn't see anything saying that what happened wasn't horrible or what happened wasn't true or that it didn't happen. And those to me are things that are far more insulting. Um, and my question is, does this mean that we now can't speak out anything against, not against, but say anything against those that mostly have control over the media? And I'm even, I'm skeptical of saying that because I don't think any form of, basically all forms of racism are a form of discrimination. And I think that any form of discrimination based off of your religion, what language you speak, what country you come from. I mean, we got that in our country. We're like really mad at people who are foreign. I don't understand that. I've never understood that. Why do we say that we're such a wonderful country and welcome people here and then be mean to them because they don't speak our language perfectly? I don't think that to me is a form of discrimination. And so once, to me, what it really is we are being patterned again into I would say virtued dehumanization. We pick a virtue and then we decide, if you say this, then you are demonized. You're bad for doing that, for saying that, for thinking that, for admitting that. Okay. When in all religions, no one knows you like the great creator. And not that I agree with abuse or dismissing people's experiences of suffering and also triumph and beliefs. I mean, my only issue with all those things, if it is misled by mistruths, then I don't want, I think that that's unfair to people. That's basically lying or gaslighting or manipulating and with no consequence. And I don't think that that is okay, especially when it comes to like spirituality and religion. Okay, I think I went all over the place with this video. But I mostly wanted to point out like the repatterning. Again, these specific, very huge, very polarized things, right? So we have the truckers in Canada, and then we have this, public shaming of a major influencer of color and of female background. And so what I've noticed, because I think if she was a man, and I may be wrong in this, but I think if Whoopi Goldberg was Warren Goldberg, I think people would be like, oh, please, Warren, tell us more about your theory. And I don't think that he would be suspended. And I don't think people would feel so comfortable just kind of belittling. Our culture doesn't really allow for that, but it does with women, especially brown women. So, and I'll just tell you this, I'm not a huge fan of The View or Whoopi Goldberg. Like, I I don't really watch regular television, as if you've watched my videos, you probably know that already. But I am watching censorship happen. I am watching a re-emergence of controlling emotions in a specific direction. And I am watching kind of like this, what would be the word? Just illogical behaviors, you know, all around. Like, illogical in the sense that it's not really, I don't think it's working in the way that it's supposed to be working. Because wouldn't it be better to, like, have a public discussion about these? And then also what happened with Joe Rogan. So if you're watching this, you might be watching this way in the future. But right now it's the beginning of February in 2022, which I mentioned before. And there's a lot going on. And I'm bringing it up because I feel like because we have generational shifts, because we work, because we are being over pressured, somewhat bullied by this illness, this virus that's 99.9%, 99. Let's just round it down. I mean, what's the risk in that? 95. I'm gonna round it down a lot. 95% survivable. Something like 95% increased immune system once survived and well. I know there's lingering stuff. It's just this constant wave. And not only that, but then also there's the numbers and there's the rituals that are happening behind the scenes. And that's why I thought, isn't this interesting? We've had 3 new moons at the beginning of the months of this year, particularly so far. And the energies seem to match. If you go back, if you go back a few years, you go back February a few years ago, February last year, February the year before, and then March. And then March is like a boom, right before spring. The birth of things. Like, I feel like I, and others are starting to see this habitual pattern of emotional and mental manipulation that is constantly being pumped through the media, through the news, through politics, through stuff that just keeps happening when this is not normal. This is not normal for the human body, and this is not what we used to do to, like, teach and connect and learn. We played with the elements. You've heard me say it. We played with the elements. We learned about our bodies. So, as this video is not about our bodies, the next video, and I'm getting really creative with some things. I want to do everything all at once. I have to be calm. The next video will be on, so just side note, and I'll re-mention this again in that video, but without our muscles in our neck, our head wouldn't be able to stay upright. It's all muscles that hold our head up. And it's almost like a hinge. So we have muscles that come up here and we have muscles that come back here, and it makes it kipple in from our back, right? And so it makes it so that we can move our head all around. Anyways, so I'm going to move into joints. Joints. And start going into muscles. But we're going to finish with the bones and joints. And then I'm going to start introducing things like essential oils. I have an essential oil book. If you want to know more about the body, get an essential oil book. It's like a cheap way to learn a lot about the body. Okay? Tons of information in there. So I'll be sharing some books and some more healing tips that I've learned. So But today's video is just to kind of point out the pattern. It's happening again. You know, it's happening again. It's a repeated pattern. I think we can beat it, y'all. I think we can beat it. I think we're on the process of beating it, but it's kind of some quirky, weird stuff in the meantime. All right, well, thank you for watching, subscribing, and listening. And I'm going to turn the camera around again real quick. Take some nice big deep breaths. Relax. Do some mental affirmations right now if you need. Some humming, some singing, drumming, whistling, whatever you may need. And sending positive, high vibes your way. Until next time, be well.